Thank you all for taking some time out today to listen to what we have to say about Intel security. My name is Linda McCord. I'm the channel account manager for Consistent Computer Bargains. I work very closely with them. And with me today, I brought Steve Goers, who is one of our solutions engineers. And he's going to go through a little bit about kind of our background, what's happened along the way, because you can see in all of our logos now, it's no longer McAfee. It's now Intel Security with the McAfee shield. That still throws a lot of people because it's no longer just the big McAfee label. Doesn't mean we've changed our products. It means that we're just getting bigger and better. So I will turn it over to Steve and let him go into it.
Hey guys, thanks for coming. Appreciate it. Yeah, like Linda said, I've been actually on the pre-sales side for about a year now. I came over from the tech support side. Came from a company called Secure Computing that McAfee acquired a few years ago. As you guys know, Intel acquired McAfee about 4 years ago, and we are now essentially a formal business unit of Intel. When the acquisition first came, excuse me, when the acquisition first came, we were a wholly owned subsidiary, and now, like I said, we're part of the Intel Security is one of the business units, just like their data center business unit, just like their IoT business unit. So, lots of awesome resources that we actually get from a pretty cool company. So we can take a quick look back at just kind of where we've come from. You guys recognize Gordon Moore, one of the founders of Intel. We just celebrated Moore's Law a few days ago, actually. So kind of interesting that it's still applicable today, even though it's a law. But just kind of an interesting kind of company framework that Intel provides. And if that's Intel, this is what McAfee came from. So, yep.
It hasn't been associated in a long time.
Exactly. So it's been an interesting little run if you think about kind of the histories of the company and the organization there. But there really has been a lot of cool technologies that both companies separately have come out of. Intel, obviously chips, but standards, and we'll talk about that actually a little bit more. Wi-Fi standard, USB standard, PCI standard. I mean, that's one of the things that Intel provides, and it's just that standardized architecture. McAfee, largest dedicated security company still today. We have lots of different interactions with partners. We cover everything from endpoints, you see USB sticks there, all the way to network appliances. So if we want, we can sell you a $270,000 network sensor for our IPS device. So we cover everything from small, medium businesses all the way up to global deployments, data centers, MSSPs, the whole 9 yards. So, a lot of interesting kind of marriages between those two companies there. Some technologies that were actually coming out of the McAfee and Intel kind of merger, but actually pre-merger. So there were some integrations that were actually occurring at the chip level prior to that actual formal announcement. One of the things that we actually provide is Intel's had this vPro technology on the chips for a while. If you take a look at your Core i7 little badge there, you'll take a look and see if you have a vPro or not. Essentially what it is it's a remote KVM capability for your laptop. So being able to, below the OS, boot in, update drivers, update DAT files, swap out encryption keys if you need to. McAfee provided the software layer for that. Intel has exposed that hardware for any vendor for a while, but they're not historically a software company. And that's why it makes sense for that merger to happen. When we kind of take a look about like where are we going, what's going on with kind of the whole marketplace, we kind of take a look at where Intel security is really going or what we see as the needs are. No question, your needs are changing all the time. There's data centers that are changing. Just the look and feel of what it means to house your own IT is different. You're using third-party services, you're using cloud services, managed services for a lot of cases. Some organizations are moving away from owning any sort of infrastructure. So lots of different kind of changes in the marketplace, no question. And this is how the marketplace has responded. Products, a whole bunch of stuff. And it's one of those things where I actually just took this slide from an older slide deck. Because we used to talk about how awesome all the McAfee integrations were with all of our products, all the management's kind of cool. But when you take a look at this slide, it just isn't busy. It's a lot of work to have point solutions, siloed solutions everywhere. No one vendor, including us, are ever going to have everything. And that's the reality of the situation. You know, I think in some of the McAfee days, we were kind of all about, you know, go big red, and that was it kind of thing. But quite frankly, just the marketplace doesn't dictate a single vendor. But we know for a fact that there's not going to ever be a single product that's a safety button. We'd love there to be an easy button, but that just doesn't exist today. And so, you know, like I said, the market's responding. There's point solutions, there's siloed solutions. You know, kind of where are we going with this? I don't need to show too many scareware slides. All this stuff is obvious today, but like I said, for all the money and resources that we are throwing at technology, throwing at services, demanding of the services that we use, man, it seems like we're hardly making progress at times. You know, or all of a sudden, you know, we have lots of good technology in place, but a vendor, you know, has access to something. In the case of Target, you know, all of a sudden now they're compromised because they didn't have some of the network segmentation stuff. You know, it's hard, but it seems like we're sort of like not making a ton of progress. Security's not trivial. You know, this is nothing that's unusual as well, but I mean, it's just constantly growing. In 2013, we saw more new malware than we'd seen in the previous 25 years combined. Some of it's old dogs, new tricks, just repacked. Some of it's polymorphic, like your configures, your crypto loggers. But the reality of the situation is it's not going away. And the challenge is on companies to protect against all of it, when the bad guys just have to find one way to get in and access that vector. I thought this was kind of a cool slide just because, please don't leave this to go to another breakout session if you're in the wrong one. So, but you know, you take a look at all the vendors that are out there today. There's a lot of good, awesome technology out there. And like I said, this is kind of one of the changes that Intel Security has really brought to this organization, is that there are lots of good stuff. There's lots of service-oriented architecture. There's lots of kind of different ways of handling different security needs for it. Lots of awesome technology out there, and that's the reality of the situation, but that's also the future. But going back to this standpoint, this is still a little bit where we're at today, where we don't, some of the integrations or perhaps partnerships, some of the integrations work great from a certain perspective, but they're brittle. Or hey, they worked in one patch, but all of a sudden you release one new patch and boom, it breaks it. And actually, you know, the resulting impact, quite frankly, is that we sort of accept that our products have been isolated in a silo. You know, yeah, McAfee's talked about if you buy all of our stuff, we kind of give you that single pane of glass management. We can. But the reality of the situation is you're going to have different technologies in place. You're going to have the need to manage multiple solutions. And right now it's tough. Right now it's difficult. And you know, there's no real value other than just the depth of being able to have these multiple solutions there. So, a little different point of view. Fitting, we're at a baseball stadium here, but if you think about every organization can look at this. There's some similarities here, but they've got their crown jewels or bases. Everybody's got something that they care about, whether or not that's their data, whether or not that's their secret sauce, whether or not that's their customers. Everybody's got some element that they need to make sure that they protect. Additionally, every customer has some sort of perimeter type device. The short story is that you have to do business on the internet. You're going to either use a third-party vendor or you're going to use some sort of hosted service, but you need to have business transactions that go over the web. Pretty much end of story. You need to have remote access, those types of things. So you need to have some sort of perimeter protection as well. And that's everybody today, essentially. Whether or not that perimeter exists in the cloud secretly or whatever, that's still the reality of the situation today. I wrote in our products here, but in the reality of the situation too, this is just about any vendors. There's a lot of different technologies that are designed for those individual places. Again, everybody's going to have probably some sort of AV or some sort of endpoint protection. Encryption is a common thing. Web, email, you know, again, your perimeter devices up top there. You know, there's customers and stakeholders that are watching this, that are concerned about what you guys and the players you're putting on the field. But it's expected that they need to perform. And like I said, we have to have a bunch of different stuff in order to cover all these vectors still today. The other thing too is that, like I mentioned before, we have to play ball. We have to provide that business transaction over the web. We have to have that data interaction with our customers. We have to have that ability to operate in this world, in this environment. And every business is basically the same in that regard. You have to play ball. So, when we think about the players that we want to buy for our team, I think there's a few fitting things we can think about. First of all, how good are they? You don't want, crappy players in your team necessarily, even if they're cheap. How much do they cost? Does it make sense to pay $30 million for that pitcher? Maybe. Veteran experience. How good is the company? How long's that company been around? Not all veteran experience is good. Sometimes that young rookie has a lot of good technology to bring to the table. A couple of little ancillary things though. How often are they injured? When you're kind of evaluating just the vendors out there, you kind of need to know how good are they from a health standpoint. And if they get sick, how quickly can we actually heal them? How quickly does their support organization fix bugs, respond to your needs, those types of things. And then there's a few other things as well. I think from a team player perspective, right now our vendors are still fairly isolated. Sometimes there's partnerships amongst some perimeter and endpoint stuff. But from a perspective of how well do they operate, how well can we place them into our existing infrastructure today? Some vendors are better than others depending upon the vendor. I like the last one, head cases. At the end of the day, maybe you can have that pitcher that's worth $30 million, that's a huge weirdo. Kind of keep them isolated, keep them on the mound, just throw pitches, call it great. But at the end of the day, sometimes that's a very real consideration that you have to have when you're picking up products. So we believe at Intel Security that regardless of the vendor, regardless of the vector, we should be able to have legitimate, real, effective communication between these products. We need to make sure that if there's a shift on, that all your players are communicating that shift. We need to make sure that they're calling out, where that help's going to come, etc. That's the type of stuff that you expect in sports. That's the type of stuff that you should expect, and that the market is going to dictate that we need from the overall vendor kind of infrastructure. This data exchange layer, if you think about an integration today, sometimes that integration is, hey, I'm going to send some logs over. Sometimes it's, hey, maybe I can kind of control the management of that other tool with this tool. But at a low level, all of our security products are designed to do a couple of things. The main thing, I would argue, is that it's designed to identify and protect against threats. So if we've got an email filter, I want to make sure I'm protecting against viruses, malware, phishing campaigns that come in. Additionally, though, that threat information should not be held just on my email device. But if I see attachments, if I see something come with a malicious host, I should be able to share that everywhere to be able to ask questions like, well, where else have I seen this in my environment? If I've determined that ultimately it is bad, I should be able to block it everywhere in my environment. And again, separate from any sort of individual vendor, some of this base information, whether or not it comes from an AV signature, whether or not it comes from a web filter, whether or not it comes from a next generation firewall, some of this base information is stuff that should be shared amongst your organization, again, regardless of the vendor. And that's what this data exchange layer is. We saw earlier that Intel was big on standards. The USB standard is what allows me to plug in 3 different USB devices right here and run this guy. Same thing with the Wi-Fi standard. That's why it doesn't matter what the wireless access point is, we can all connect to that Wi-Fi. The same thing for our data exchange layer. We are expecting and pushing that this is a standard with which all vendors, all organizations have to do to share this base level amongst your security products. In the kind of current aspect of today, right now, integrations come in and they're kind of disjointed. Again, I kind of mentioned, well, maybe we can kind of manage portions of that solution. Maybe we can ingest some sort of data from that other point solution, etc. But they're disjointed. They're difficult to maintain. McAfee got extremely good at this with our security alliance partnerships. We have over 100 partners that we have integrations with, and we can speak to how blasted difficult it is to keep that up. All of a sudden, a patch release comes up from one of your products, boom, integration broke. Now we got to wait until that follow-up product has that. So, it's just tough to maintain, and it's just overwhelming to kind of deal with. For this threat information, when you think about the actual types of data, file information, network information, IP information, this is the type of stuff that should be standardized across our infrastructure. Whether or not we've got a sweet little heuristic analysis tool to issue that conviction, whether or not we use just typical data updates. Once we have that conviction, we should have that ability to share that information everywhere. Like I said, regardless of the vendor, it's a standard. Intel is all about standards. That is one of the things that they are born of. So obviously people know Intel inside, we've heard about chips forever. But like I said, we look at 802.11, we look at PCI, serial ATA, just lots of cool technologies that Intel has brought from a general standardized perspective. And everybody can make money still operating on that standard. That is what they are bringing to security. That is why they acquired McAfee in the first place, is to provide an avenue in which to standardize the security. And that's where, like I said, it's important, because we saw that earlier image of just all these different things that are out there. If there's not some sort of fundamental change in our ability to share that info, at some point this whole industry is not sustainable. It becomes extremely difficult to do it. I mean, it's expensive right now, but finding the right resources, finding the right talent to be able to do that, finding the right service, it's just difficult. And like I said, Intel makes money off of standardizing this stuff. If this was kind of a McAfee, push, if you will, if we didn't really have the cloud of Intel, it would really be not really that big. It would be kind of all of our products would integrate well on it, that'd be great, but it wouldn't be really anything that would be compelling for the industry as a whole. Nor does it actually help the industry as a whole if we kind of keep all this stuff in isolation. And Intel is big. Their main thing is that as we develop this needs to be open, this needs to be available to everybody. However, Intel Security today still has the most comprehensive portfolio of security products. So lots of good vendors out there, no question about it. When you take a look at everything from the network perimeter to the data center to the cloud to on-premise solutions to your endpoints, laptops, mobile devices, Intel has the most comprehensive portfolio of security products for that today. We are the largest dedicated security company. So we're cheating because all of our products are working on this data exchange layer first. But that's the benefit we get from being an Intel company. But Intel itself is dedicated on making security and really enabling the security infrastructure and security environment today. When Intel initially acquired McAfee, still some kind of questions about why they did so. They talked about 3 pillars. One pillar of Intel was performance. Another pillar was efficiency. And the last pillar was security. And if you think about Internet of Things, you think about data centers, if security isn't fundamental to some of that core infrastructure, we can't constantly just put software over the top. We can't constantly just band-aid our way in. We need to make this from a fundamental, part of the fundamental stand of our environment there. So that's just a little bit about Intel Security. Any kind of questions on that? What we're doing or whatever. And honestly, for any questions, feel free to reach out to us. And feel free to go to McAfee.com also /expert center. So McAfee.com/expert center. That is actually a good kind of one-stop shop, just the products in our portfolio. There's some good YouTube videos on how to get this stuff stood up in a very quick, meaningful way. But that's a nice actually little corollary to the next little bit we're going to talk about here. So hopefully we'll do some time for lunch here in just a bit. But one of the things that, as you guys know, as you're evaluating software or taking a look at technologies, A lot of times you have to bring it in-house. You know, a demo's kind of cool, and the sales guy shows it all awesome, puts lipstick on this pig, and this is the right solution. But in order to truly get your hands dirty with it, you actually need to have it in-house typically. And a lot of times that's difficult. Now we're talking a POC. Now that POC requires people to be able to put on this project. And then now those people that are on this project have to learn new technology, stand it up, try to figure out the ins and outs, just to figure out if they even want to buy it. It's a lot of work, you know, much less potentially time wasting or just time that a lot of organizations don't have. So one of the things that we have been very significantly pushing is this cloud runner. So you guys are familiar with Amazon AWS? Anybody not familiar with that? So awesome hosted cloud service. So what we have done is we have stood up basically the bulk of our products in Amazon with real data, a real environment, allowing you to actually have a formal hands-on approach to either demos or POCs. This doesn't necessarily take the place of a formal, legitimate POC once you get to that point where you kind of identify the top couple of vendors you go on. But when you're trying to cut through all the chaff, if you will, to figure out what makes sense from your organization, if you want to be able to see live data that's useful, but not have to go through the effort of building it all up, getting all the components tweaked, spending time with sales engineers or supports kind of standing this stuff up. If, you know what, I want to take a look at our encryption software. Let's just take a look at that. I want to just see how it works, see how the policy works. If this really makes sense for our organization, awesome, we'll take a closer look later. But I need to be able to play with it myself, not just do a little demo and let me show you all the cool things about it. And that's what we've done. So take a look at just some of the different products that are listed here. Obviously, there's a whole scroll bar, but like I said, the entire endpoint portfolio, application control, email gateway. There's web gateway listed below here. Our next generation firewall. We've really kind of made a big, huge effort to make this easy for customers to take a look at what our offering is in a way where they can just do it in their office. You don't have to spend time standing up a bunch of stuff. Make it really easy for you guys. So on that note, I will pop over to the demo environment here. Bear with me.
Now, while he's doing that, so as far as the demos go, if you guys are interested in taking a look at that any further, you can always contact your rep at CCB. They in turn will contact me, and then we will take it from there, get you involved with our engineers and CCB's counterpart reps at Intel Security, and get that moving forward. Okay.
So what I'm actually pointing out here, so I mean, what you're seeing right now is Cloud Runner. Just a Server 2008 environment. There's actually a secondary server that we're going to pop in here. I'm going to show you just a brief, real quick demo of our TIE software here, but I did kind of want to just point out, for those who are kind of familiar with EPO, again, all the all the EPO infrastructure is all stood up in the cloud there for you. You don't have to worry about setting up an EPO server or anything like that. So any of the endpoint stuff you want to do, you can simply just check it in, take a look at it. Very easy to do. Let's go take a look at kind of a use case about, and it actually goes into this this kind of conversation we talked about security connected and being able to kind of share this info. Probably the number one, probably the number one thing that people are, the number one challenge of organizations anywhere are the people. For the people that know, for example, as I click on this PDF, the fact that it opens a prompt to save the file immediately for most security professionals should be like, well, that seems weird, we shouldn't do that. For any other user, oh, okay, I'll just save it. Apparently that's what it's supposed to do, kind of thing. Those are the types of challenges that you can have all the security tools in the world, but if you don't have the ability to kind of help people help themselves kind of thing, that's, it's great. It's only marginally useful, like I said, until we have all those mechanisms there. So what are most users going to do? I guess I'll just kind of power right through it. And sure enough, I'll just hit OK again. And one of the things that you don't see in the background here is that we have never seen this file before. No DAT signature has caught it. We don't know anything about it. But what we have done is we have said, you know what, for anything that we have not seen before, we are going to do some further analysis on it. And ultimately, we have made the decision to ultimately block because our sandbox came back to convict. But when you think about your crypto locker, or crypto wall variants that are polymorphic, that are a huge pain in the rear to actually get a proper DAT for, that you're probably constantly fighting every other week until you spend tons of time either locking down your policy or implementing other technologies around. Being able to simply say, you know what, I just want to actually send an alert and do some additional analysis on things that are unknown in our environment. And that's what we've done today. So if you think about things that are known, file signatures, there's proper signing for legitimate files there. There's lots of ways to make sure things are well known, like a Visio file. There's lots of things that are well known as bad. The reason we know that is because we have DAT signatures that cover millions of variants. We know about the bad stuff. That's not the hard part. The hard stuff is the gray, the stuff that we've never seen before. For those of you that are familiar with PuTTY, when's the last time you pulled down PuTTY? When's the last time you checked the file hash of that file you pulled down? I never have, baby. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things where that's the type of stuff that we're concerned about. You know, it's not necessarily somebody downloading a legitimate copy of Firefox from Mozilla's website. When that file comes down, we know about it. It's very well known in our organization. And the reason that we know that is because we are sharing that info. But when we have seen something for the first time, and we have seen something for the first time that it's operating and doing an unusual behavior, in this case it's dropping a file, that right away that's an unknown situation. We need to make sure that we prevent those unknowns from happening. Later on, like I said, we can sandbox that information. We can choose to block it or allow it. Hey, maybe this is an unknown custom developers just wrote on a whim. You know what? Perfect. That's something that we're going to say. You know what? We know about this file. We're going to share that as well. But once we issue this block, we also want to make sure that we block it everywhere. We want to block it on the perimeter. We want to block it on our firewall. We want to block it on our email and web devices. This is the type of information that we need to make sure we share, not just to McAfee products, but to every security vector tool we've got. Otherwise, like I said, if we're not sharing some of this base information, file information, IP information, hash information, if we're not able to share that information, if we're not able to kind of put that out there in our organization, where have you seen us, where have you run this, all of a sudden, we really have those overwhelming challenges there. So, so like I said, to kind of conclude just a little bit from this piece of it, we're really trying to, like I said, change the architecture overall and make it easier for you guys to evaluate, take a look at what we have, what our offerings are, and that's Security Connected. Any kind of questions on it? Yeah.
You mentioned the data exchange, being able to let the different components talk to each other, exchanges. How far away are you implementing that?
Great question. So all of our products by the end of this quarter will actually be on them. So next generation firewall, email, web, IPS, endpoints, SIM, data leakage, data loss, for the McAfee perspective. Additionally, at the end of this quarter, we are releasing our SDK. So I kind of mentioned cheating, so we're cheating by getting all of our products on it first. But the SDK is going to be open, like I said, at the end of this quarter, and we already have 3 partners. 2 of them I know of is Titus and Forescout. But we are ultimately, like I said, pushing this open architecture so that hopefully over the next several months, so our big actual annual user conference is called Focus. We have it in Vegas every year. It's middle of October. We are actually suspecting that there's going to be some major announcements as far as third-party vendors that have actually chosen to sign on this as well.
And it's Intel that's setting the standard for the data exchange?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So the protocol itself is actually built on MQTT, and you guys recognize that from Twitter and Facebook chat. So if you think about it's a persistent connection, but if you think about it, I can also not only send you a message, but I also see when the other person's typing it. So we're constantly aware of what's going on. And the information that we're sharing, it's not mind-blowing. You know, it's basic things like, we know about this file, we know some characteristics about this file, we know where it came from. I need to make sure that I share that in a common structure, a common framework, a common language that all other devices can actually consume. And then they should also be able to produce that information to our exchange layer as well. So, like I said, this is something that over the next several months, we're expecting that you're going to hear more and more just vendors talk about it. We definitely have seen some vendors today kind of start to think about doing it themselves. And part of the problem is just the reach. You know, if you have Cisco's got kind of an opportunity with this as well. They've got an excellent reach on the switches, firewalls, those types of things. A little less touch on the endpoint side. Palo Alto's kind of doing some, you know, connectivity things as well. Again, they don't quite have the expanse of the marketplace necessarily be able to share it amongst everything and really get that force behind it. And that's what Intel provides. Like I said, if this was just a McAfee thing, it'd be kind of this internal thing, kind of cool, probably not really effective from a security just environment. Like I said, it's Intel inside, it's now Intel outside. You know, this is one of the key pieces that we see the future going. And like I said, we can still make money on our security products still by making this information available to all the other vendors. Any questions? Okay. So I guess I got a couple minutes back there for you guys, but that's kind of what I got for today. So any questions? Like I said, McAfee.com/expertcenter. Feel free to write that down. Check out our products. Any additional questions? Like I said, feel free to ask them or myself. We're here to help. But yeah. Otherwise, guys, enjoy.
Thank you, everyone.